Turret camera is just a dome camera without the glass dome. And it makes it a lot easier to install if you're doing it yourself. There's a bunch of considerations when you're installing a dome that make it kind of hard to DIY and good for a professional. And a turret camera just makes it a little bit easier to install. There's less things to screw up.
Everyone, welcome to another episode of the In the Trenches Roundtable. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us. And today we're going to be doing a product showcase. And we've already shot the video on the sheriff, but we didn't shoot a video on the deputy. Till now. We're talking about the Deputy 8.0 V4.
I shot the sheriff.
Yes,
But I
let's wait
danced
for it.
through the
Come on.
puberty.
That's good. That's good. Awesome. And so now with me, I'm joined by my awesome panel of experts. Thanks so much for joining us again today. Say hi, everyone.
Hello.
All right. And if you're not familiar with these product showcases, they do follow a structure. And today we're going to be covering and breaking down the video like this. We're first going to talk about what even is the Deputy 8.0 V4. And then we'll talk a little bit about some active deterrent features, who should be interested in this type of model camera. We'll then cover turret considerations. And then finally, we're going to get our panel's final thoughts on the Deputy 8.0 V4. So we'll start off with the first section. And again, that's going to be what is the Deputy 8.0 V4? And I'll start with James. James, you want to give us your 30-second pitch on what the Deputy 8.0 is?
Yeah, sure. The Deputy 8.0, that 8.0 refers to the resolution, which is 8 megapixels or 4K, which we'll cover specs here in a second. But it's a turret camera with chock full of features, really. You've got white light capability now in it. You've got microphone and speaker for two-way audio. You got active deterrence features, which we'll talk about. But it's one of our workhorse cameras. In fact, it's our best-selling camera model overall. If you're putting a camera on a building, then this is most likely going to be the one that we're going to suggest for most general use surveillance. That in our Warrior series. So covered my kind of nutshell on it.
Heck yeah, absolutely. That's great. That definitely gives us a good starting off point. Michael, what are some of the key specs that you would want to know about for the Deputy?
Yeah, so like James said, this is a 4K camera, so it's 3840 by 2160 resolution. It does have a 107-degree field of view, so it can detect somebody at 150 feet, recognize them at about 85 feet, and identify somebody at about 45 feet.
Wow.
And the infrared will reach about 100 feet on that one.
Nice. Heck yeah. And then did I miss it? Did you cover that it has a microphone as well? Built-in microphone?
Oh yeah, so like James said, sorry, James had already mentioned that it had a speaker and a microphone built in, and it also has the white light.
Perfect. That's right. That's right. I wasn't sure if James had covered it or not. That's awesome. Thanks, Michael. That's great. Some awesome specs on that camera. That's for sure. Matt, what even is a turret camera though? We've used that term a few times, and I think it's fair for us to define it.
So a turret camera is a dome camera. So it's sort of hangs down from the ceiling most situations. That's what a dome camera is. Typically has that sort of glass dome around the device. A turret camera is just a dome camera without the glass dome. And it makes it a lot easier to install if you're doing it yourself. There's a bunch of considerations when you're installing a dome that make it kind of hard to DIY and good for a professional. And a turret camera just makes it a little bit easier to install. There's less things to screw up. But it still functions like a dome camera. The way that you would turn a dome camera, the way that you would adjust it, all of that is exactly the same. But a good way to kind of think about it is like all of the ease of use of installing a bullet camera, but with a hang down from ceiling form factor.
Gotcha. That makes a ton of sense. I think that helps clear the air a little bit there. Another thing I want to cover really quick too is for those who are aware of the version 3 model, what's different about this version 4, or what's new?
I would say the two biggest differences is going to be the introduction of the white light in the Deputy series, and also the speaker, the built-in speaker. The V3 did have a built-in microphone, but that was only for the one-way audio, where this way you can actually do two-way audio from like your smartphone or your computer, things like that.
That's awesome. And are there just hardware differences? Or are there any software differences with this camera as well? Like, are there any VCAs that are different on this one than any others?
Actually, I think it's the same, but this does actually give you, as far as what analytics are available on it, but this does give you, because it now has a speaker and a white light, some active deterrence features, which we'll talk about later in the video, but that's a new thing compared to the V3. And another upgrade is compared from the V3 to the V4. The V4 does have a lower light sensor, so it will perform better at night than the V3 would as well. So.
Mm.
Used a
Right.
term there, VCA. Somebody mind defining that?
VCA stands for Video Content Analytics.
That's kind of your analytic functions on the camera. So something like drawing a line and seeing if something crosses it, or intrusion detection is the other major one, where you can actually set a zone and set parameters in that zone of how big something has to be in that zone, how long they have to be in that zone, and then also a sensitivity of how, is it going to detect it. So it basically is a way to either record or get alerts, much more effective than your traditional motion detection, which is typically just pixel based and can have a lot of noise to it. And we did actually do a pretty good video on that one, motion detection as well. If anybody's interested, in the description below.
Mhm. So Matt, you just called out that we should define VCAs, and I appreciate that, absolutely. I think we should actually define active deterrence because we keep using that term often, and I'd love to unpack that a little bit more if we can.
Yeah. So active deterrence, like for years and years, security cameras have kind of been a very passive deterrent. So the idea is maybe if somebody has a camera on that building, it's, obviously it's like, somebody might not want to break into it because they see the cameras. That's kind of the idea of them being passive deterrence. But there's nothing there to alarm or do anything as far as alerting the person that they're on video. They may not even see that camera. So active deterrence is like almost like it's something you have to reconsider the way cameras are actually used in a way to understand them, because after deterrence cameras usually have some kind of function like a speaker to give like a big loud alert to it. They may also have like a different kind of light, and even some of them, like our mini PTZ, actually has like a red and blue light that lights up and everything like that. And the idea is not just to be passive during recording and getting evidence, but to also potentially try to prevent something. So you can see on the Deputy 8.0 V4, we have a white light there that can alert and then put a speaker to say, hey, you're in the alert area, leave. And so that way somebody knows they're on camera and they know that they're being recorded and potentially being watched. And, that hopefully will scare somebody away from doing something and deter them away. So
Yeah, it's
that's like
the idea that if you put cameras up, people won't want to commit crimes here. They'll still commit crimes. They just won't do it on your property because they know they're recorded. But that relies on them noticing that the camera's there. And so this adds another layer to that. It makes it very obvious that, it might make a alarm noise. It might say something. You can do some pre-recorded messages. It might light up. But it makes it very clear, like, you're here, you're noticed, go away.
And just so we're clear on the lighting up part of it, it's going to flash. So the active deterrent is the white light actually flashing when somebody enters an area or crosses a line or whatever setting you have set up for this particular camera. And it's not something like motion where when the camera detects motion, the white light just comes on and stays on. It flashes at you.
Mm.
So it's gonna be very noticeable.
Mm.
And I would also like to add that, like some of the pre-recorded messages, not only is it active deterrent, but it's active warning as well. So, you go into a certain area, there's one on there for deep water. There might be a river somewhere that they need to let people know, hey, there's
Mhm.
rushing water, there's deep water, it's danger warning. This area is restricted for whatever reason. It's just a good way to get somebody's attention to keep themselves safe, not only for, protecting your property.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think that's a great point. Yeah, I mean, you could have dangerous equipment, dangerous areas. Yeah, you don't really think about that as much, but yeah, there's lots of examples we've had. I think one of the best examples I've ever seen of active deterrence was we had somebody who had catalytic converter thefts going on in their parking lot, and the cameras recorded it. He was able to get the evidence, everything he needed for that. that's all great. But he was trying to do something to potentially deter people away from even doing it again. And, there's lots of ways to do that. You can talk about fencing and all that kind of stuff as well. But, he installed some of our mini PTZ, similar function, but, and is using that to hopefully not just record when somebody's doing that, but hopefully scare them enough to be like, hey, I'm out of here. I don't want to, this place is obviously being monitored and all that kind of stuff. And that's like a good real world example of where active deterrence fits in, I think.
Mhm.
And after hour stuff as well. So if somebody shouldn't be in a certain part of the building, you can turn that on and get both a notification and let the person know that, hey, that they're being watched, or whatever you need to do. So limitless applications in a way. But
Absolutely. Awesome. That helped clear that up for me. Thanks. I appreciate that. So now that we've defined some of the differences of the camera and what this camera even is, who should be interested in this type of camera? And maybe
Everybody.
I mean, it's our
Absolutely.
best-selling camera, so
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's you get such a wide angle of view that you're pretty much covering. I don't know. I cover almost my entire front yard with one of these.
Wow.
Like I see everything now. Of course, I might add a PTZ, or I might have like a bullet camera that can zoom in a little bit better on my driveway. But for the overall view, I just use one of those.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
great.
Like general purpose coverage. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And
it's
these
a
are the
really flexible camera. It can
very.
be used in all sorts of scenarios. And so it can be used in all sorts of client profiles. So you got everything from giant military bases that use a camera like this to small mom and pops. Michael's got one at his house. Um, Anything in between. And the reason it's so flexible is, first off, it's super easy to mount on either the ceiling or the wall. And this is different than like a traditional dome camera, which is a little harder to mount on the wall and kind of easier on the ceiling. And this is different than a traditional bullet camera, which is easier on the wall and a little harder on the ceiling. This is kind of easy on both. So it's super flexible, and you're like, hey, I know I need a camera in this room. I'm not super certain where I'm going to put it. Bam, this is a great one to buy because you can go either way. Um, the other big thing is, like, at 107 degrees, you can stick it in a corner and it's pretty much going to see everything in the room.
Mhm.
So, end corner is going to be 90 degrees. You can't really get the camera fully at that end point. So it's going to be a little bit outside of that because you got to have some space to mount it. So that extra angle of view, make sure that you get everything. You don't have to be like super precise about getting it into the corner. You can mount it where it's convenient for you. And this just works almost everywhere. And then the other big thing is it's 4K at a really great price point. And that makes it so that it's a great value for the dollar. You get all these extra cool features like active deterrence, the white light, the speaker, all of that stuff. And it's priced super great because it's really our most popular camera. So we can pass that, cost of mass manufacturing and the lowered cost on that in the terms of having a better price point for the end user.
Well, and Matt, you actually just started touching on something that I wanted to pick up on.
Mhm.
You said it's our best selling camera, and it is, but I feel like, it's a 4K camera. That's, 4K is just still kind of an emerging technology in this space.
Yeah,
Um,
this is not the industry's best selling camera. So the
Right.
industry likes to sell cameras that are a little bit higher than 1080p, and that's like their big selling point, somewhere in the 3 to 5 megapixels, and this is an 8 megapixel camera. And so the reason I think this is a much bigger part of our portfolio when you compare it to like the industry at large is the price point. It's just
Mhm.
super reasonable. It's
Mhm.
feature packed and it's not crazy expensive. And a lot of the other 4K cameras on the market are crazy expensive for a similar set of feature sets.
Mhm. Or yeah,
I
or
also,
very, very specific. Mhm.
yeah, I'd also say one of the things that a little different from SCW when we talk about 4K is I think we always present the value of what a 4K camera will get you versus a 2 megapixel or 1080p camera.
Mhm.
That's 4 times the resolution. So your effective range in that camera is effectively almost 4 times as much if they have the same lens, and other factors, of course, involved there. But and so like by having like real world examples, you see here on this product page, we have real world examples of images from the camera that lets you can see, and you can compare and contrast the 2 megapixel version with the 4K version. And when you compare the price difference, it really does make sense to potentially go for the 4K if you need it, especially in an outdoor application where you just don't know what's going to be close to your building. A good split out, a lot of times indoor you can go for some lower, and then outdoor you typically want to go for higher. And I think that's one of the other big reasons of showcasing the value. A lot of people, if they knew what the difference was between the two, would probably choose the 4K 9 out of 10 times. But especially with the price difference. So
And I think that's also brings up something else about Ben's team and how good they are at, qualifying the customer and saying, hey, this is what we think is going to work best for you based on what you're telling me, what you're showing me. Maybe we drew up a map or something for somebody, that it's just going to show off exactly what they need.
yeah, the floor plans show
Uh,
you the range there.
And one other thing that I think also contributes to this is all the installers, throughout the country. They're so used to 1080p. They're so used to it. And we have a very good installation team for SCW, but then we also deal a lot with DIY. And so the customer is actually choosing what's going to work best for them, not being told what's going to work best for them by somebody who's, looking to make a whole lot of money.
To Michael's point there, I think it's the entirety of what SCW can offer affords our clients the ability to get more dollar out of the camera they purchase, because they might be saving it elsewhere. Maybe it's on the less number of cameras, or maybe it's not on install like he just alluded to, or maybe it's not on crazy support fees because we have world-class support that's free, right? So all of these factors factor into the idea that you can purchase a higher resolution camera because maybe you need less of them, or maybe you're saving money elsewhere.
I mean, in general, if you have higher resolution cameras in bigger spaces, you're actually going to save money because you don't have to buy as many cameras in total. So consider just a really large open floor plan. How many cameras at 1080p do you have to have full coverage? You've actually got to have a lot more, and you start to have these really expensive installations when you've got to put it where you don't have a wall. And you've got to think about running all the cables. So when you think about like the cost of running a cable is usually about equal to the cost of the device. If you spend a little bit more on a higher end device, you run less cables, you actually end up spending less in total. That doesn't always work out. Maybe you have a small room and the resolution doesn't help you. But if you've got a bigger space, this is absolutely going to be a better use of your funds because you save so much in labor compared to having twice as many camera drops. I've got one more thing to add for that, which is I think one of the reasons that we sell more 4K than other companies. Most cameras have 2 video outputs, so you're able to watch, the 4K resolution, for example, and then a lower resolution. Our cameras have 3. So this allows you to have some flexibility. It also allows you to downgrade the video. So for example, if you were to say like, hey, I want to retain my footage for 90 days. Well, maybe I don't want to record it at 4K 30 frames a second. That's a lot of data. You can choose the 4K product and say, but I only needed 4 megapixels. So I did a lower resolution recording.
Yeah, you could future-proof yourself in that way. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a really, really good
I've
point.
never had a customer call when I was in support or anything like that with like, man, I wish this camera was just a little less clear. They always, the expectation is that they always wish it was a little bit more clear so you get a better look at their face or whatever detail they're looking for. And 4K is going to give you the best chance of getting that detail you need. And when presenting that option, sometimes people don't even get presented a 4K option. They want that future proofing and that peace of mind that you get with that extra resolution. So to put
even speaking to that, we even have some friends out west who have some government requirements by their state to do their business in a certain way, and their lowest resolution that they are able to accept is 720p. So 720p on this camera is not available on its mainstream, but it's available on its substream. So you can record the substream as your stored footage and still have that mainstream for maybe like a monitor up front to let people know, hey, I'm recording in my business, be careful. But you're still able to have that 720p regulated resolution on the hard drive. Customer don't know.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, that's so cool. That's why your team's so great, Michael.
Thanks.
That's why your team's so great.
Thanks.
Heck yeah. That's actually a really good transition though too to maybe some considerations of these turret cameras. We talked a lot about some of the reasons you should be interested in them, who should be interested in them. all the reasons why you should be interested in them, but what about some of the considerations for turret cameras and specifically the Deputy 8.0?
I mean, turret cameras are, they're all, like I said, easy to install. They're pretty worry free. Obviously, with any security camera, you do want to occasionally check to make sure that they're clean, that the quality of the video is as good as you got it when you first installed it. Because if dust, dirt, everything like that, and grease and all other kinds of stuff that can get on the lenses, if that starts to build up on it, obviously, like the night vision may not be as good, or we may just notice it not quite as crisp as when you first got it. Put a calendar in, calendar reminder every couple of months to maybe check it, make sure everything still looks good. And if it doesn't, try to clean it. That's really the only consideration I can think of. When it comes to the active deterrence, I will say like the white light is 30 feet in distance. So it's not going to be getting somebody across a parking lot or something like that. So if you are considering using the active deterrence feature, you want to make sure that that's in a kind of a small bubble around the camera. It's not a long range feature. It is something that's within, I would say, 30 feet of the camera. Seems was probably a good one. You want to make sure
Yeah.
you can hear it and make sure that they can see the white light and all that.
Yeah, I agree with that. About 30 feet. It seems, I mean, that gets even close to pushing it at that 30-foot mark. But yeah, you're very, very correct on that.
Yeah,
The,
that would be
the other consideration that I would have is when not to use this. This might not be a good product for you if you're like on a college campus, for example. We've got a whole nother video on domes versus turrets that we'll drop in the link below as well. And that talks specifically about a lot of the ones with the glass dome. And again, a turret is a dome camera without the glass dome. And sometimes you do want a glass dome, especially if you're something like a college campus where you probably have a lot of people who don't want to be filmed and might turn the camera or might try to mess with the camera. The glass dome does help protect against that from that sort of internal vandalism, but it is a little more frustrating to use because you got to clean it. You've got to make sure you don't get your fingerprints on it. There's a whole bunch of things about a glass dome that are not ideal. We got a separate video about that, and then for one of our shorts. And we also have a video about the Sheriff model, which is sort of this same camera, but with a glass dome. So
Yeah.
check out both of those if you want to have more information. And if you think to yourself, oh, I do have a lot of vandalism, check out these other products there and or other videos and the other product because they might be more up your alley.
And you can mix and match. So I mean, there's
100%. Yep.
just to make that clear, and you can have some turret cameras in this section of your building and dome cameras in another. Just you don't need to buy a single package system that only has one. So we'll work with you to make sure you get the right camera for the right position.
A good rule of thumb that we always talk to a lot of customers about is this within reach? Is this particular camera within reach of your average person who's going to be in this place? If it is, okay, maybe something like a dome is where you want to go, but watch the other videos.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, it's some good stuff. Absolutely good stuff. Well, that brings us to wrapping this section up and this video up. And I'll take some time here to go around the wheel. Each one of our panelists, maybe they can give us their final 30 seconds thoughts on the Deputy 8.0 V4.
I'll go first. We call it the workhorse for a reason. It just is applicable in so many different scenarios. It's a great camera that does so many different things. Not a specialty camera. It is a workhorse camera for the majority of your cameras on your building, and at a great price point for both the feature set with all the bells and whistles on the device and the upgraded resolution.
Yeah, I agree with Matt. I mean, just the white light feature alone is worth it for me. Plus the angle of view, you pick up so much.
Yeah, I'm having trouble thinking of things to add on. It's just, a very good camera. And it also fits a bunch of different applications, like we said, with the active deterrence, all that kind of stuff. And even if you're not using active deterrence, it's still one of the best cameras you can possibly use for this scenario. So you're just getting more and more value. The V3 had a lot of value and we had the mic and all that. But the V4 has even more value now with the white light active deterrence and everything. So, your workhorse camera, your everything, no additional charge over the V3. So it's just getting you more and more value for your dollar.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think it's well said. Well said. That was a great session. Glad we were able to cover that, the deputy this time. So we took care of both of them, the sheriff and the deputy. So there should be no more worries out there. No, that should wrap this one up though. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I appreciate it. If you want to learn more about the Deputy 8.0 V4 or dome cameras in general, please feel free to get in touch. Any of our links to the videos that we discussed in this video will be below. So feel free to grab those. And then all of our contact information will be down there as well. So we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much. And we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Yep.